What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope everybody out there is having a great day. It's nice and cool here on the homestead today. We had a heat wave this past weekend, but now it's overcast, cool, hardly any humidity out here. Feels really good. So today I want to talk about a new addition we're going to be making to the homestead pretty soon. On the last video we talked about the chickens. We're adding those as a part of our garden plan, but very soon we're going to be getting our own greenhouse here at Lazy Dog Farm. I've already submitted the payment for it, just waiting on them to get all the pieces ready and for the guy to be able to come out here and put it up. Yes, I'm having someone put it together for me because I still can't do that with my back situation. So we should be getting a greenhouse within the next, I'd say probably 3 to 4 weeks, just in time for some fall seed starting, getting some transplants, some cool weather transplants going for fall. So in today's video, I want to talk to you about why I think a greenhouse is such a valuable investment for any homestead, especially if you like to garden. Talk to you about what you should consider, the things you should consider if you're looking at getting a greenhouse. You know, what do you need in a greenhouse, how big, the things you need inside it, all that good stuff. I'll talk to you about where we're going to put the greenhouse here on our 2-acre homestead and kind of what went into those decisions as far as where we're going to be putting it. And then we'll go inside and I'll get on the computer and show you the actual one we're getting and why we chose that particular one. So let's start off talking about why you need a greenhouse if you like to garden. And I personally think a greenhouse is one of the best investments you can make on a homestead if you enjoy gardening on kind of any scale. Even if you just got a little small one plot, you can still benefit a lot from a greenhouse. And a greenhouse is definitely an investment. They're not cheap. Now there are some designs out there where you can kind of make your own. There's lots of YouTube videos out there of people that have made their own greenhouse, whether it be with cattle panels, all kind of different designs out there. But you can spend as much or as little as you want on a greenhouse. You want a nice sturdy structure, especially down here where we can get hurricanes and stuff. I want something that's gonna be able to somewhat hold up to some of the storms and stuff we get. So why is it worth the investment? We like to grow a lot of things from transplants, and in my opinion you can just grow better transplants inside a greenhouse. Yes, you can set up a little indoor seed starting setup with some grow lights and you can grow really good transplants that way, but you have to be careful with the height of the light above the plants. You can't get the light too high or the plants will get leggy. You have to do a lot of bottom watering because you're inside, you can't get water all over the floor. So there are some restrictions to an indoor seed starting setup that we don't necessarily have when we're growing inside a greenhouse. And in my opinion, you just grow better transplants inside a greenhouse. I've kind of tested both ways and they just seem to do better inside a greenhouse. I mentioned the bottom watering thing. Now, if you've watched my videos for a while, you know I like to grow my transplants in these big prop tech trays here that are nice and sturdy. And from my experiences, and I know bottom watering, a lot of people preach bottom watering for transplants to reduce disease and all this stuff. I like watering my seedlings and transplants from the top. I don't really care for the whole bottom watering thing. I know there are lots of listed advantages to it, but there's tons of commercial greenhouse growers around here that grow plants, cabbage plants, watermelon plants, squash, whatever, for all these big farmers, and all those guys do top watering. And I've always liked top watering as opposed to bottom watering. So that's why I like a greenhouse over an indoor setup, because I can water from the top. And my transplants in these big sturdy trays just seem to do better when watering from the top. I seem to get better germination when watering from the top. If you're planting some pelleted seeds, maybe pelleted tomato seeds, pelleted lettuce seeds, you need that top watering initially to kind of bust off that little clay capsule and get that seed to germinate. So for me, top watering is the way to go. and I need a greenhouse with a dirt floor to really be able to do that. It's hard to kind of top water inside. You can make a mess real easy doing that. So in addition to just being able to grow better transplants, in my opinion, why else do you need a greenhouse? Well, you can grow food throughout the winter if you've got a greenhouse. Now down here in South Georgia in Zone 8B, we can grow food pretty much year round because we don't get a lot of frost, maybe only 3 or 4 frosts a year. But if you've got a greenhouse and you live up north, you can grow a lot of food inside that greenhouse. Down here, we can grow things that aren't frost tolerant inside the greenhouse. We might can grow a couple pepper plants, a couple tomato plants inside there. So you can use it for growing transplants, but if you live in a colder climate, you can also use it for growing food throughout the winter. Another reason, it's just fun. Having your own greenhouse is fun. It's just fun to get out there, play around, start some seeds, do some experimenting. It's just really, really fun and enjoyable to have a greenhouse. And although it is an investment, you know, depending on whether you build it yourself or you buy one like we're doing, over time it can really pay for itself. You consider the amount of transplants you're growing in there. You can sell some plants on the side. You know, you can pot up tomato plants in a 4-inch pot or so, sell them for $3 or $4 a piece, just like they do at the big box stores. And you can pay for your greenhouse pretty quickly in just a few seasons just by, you know, growing, selling your own plants. Not to mention you're saving from having to buy plants yourself because you're growing your own. So I think it pays for itself pretty quickly. Maybe not in one season, but in a few years it can easily pay for itself. And I'm sure there's more great reasons why you should have a greenhouse on a homestead if you like to garden. But those are just some of mine why I really enjoy or will enjoy having a greenhouse. Now let's talk about some things to consider what you need in a greenhouse depending on where you live. So the greenhouse we're going to be getting is almost identical, if not completely identical, to the one you saw me do videos in over on the Hoss channel. And that style just works really good down here. And I'll tell you why we like that style for down here in the south. So the first thing to consider when getting a greenhouse is size. How big of a greenhouse do you need? You can get massive greenhouses. You know, you can get a commercial grade huge greenhouse. You can get just a hobby greenhouse. There's all different variations out there. And I guess the size just depends on what you're going to do in there. Are you going to use this greenhouse to grow your own food? Or are you just using it for growing transplants? You know, take for instance my buddies Danny and Wanda over at Deep South Homestead. They have several greenhouses and they're actually using them to grow food. So they're a lot bigger than the greenhouse that we're going to be getting. We can grow food pretty much year round down here, and we're not going to be using the greenhouse to really grow food inside of it. Like I said, we may grow a pepper plant or two or a tomato plant or two inside it throughout the winter. Probably do some fig cuttings and stuff like that inside there. But it's mainly going to be used to grow transplants to then put out in our in-ground vegetable gardens. So for us, we're going with a 10 by 16. So not a massive greenhouse, but you can grow a lot of transplants in a 10 by 16 greenhouse. Now if you're using it or going to need a greenhouse to grow food throughout the winter, you probably need something a little bigger than that. If you're growing this to really grow a lot of transplants or maybe even some hanging baskets to sell or whatever you're going to do, you might need a bigger size. But if you're just growing transplants for a vegetable garden, I think a 10 by 16 is plenty big enough. The other thing to consider when choosing a greenhouse, which is super important down here, is ventilation. It gets really hot down here. Now it's not that big of an issue in late winter, early spring when we're starting tomato, pepper transplants, things like that, because it's still relatively cool outside. But when we're starting fall transplants, at the end of August on through September, it's still pretty hot around here, and you've got to have some ventilation in there, or else it just gets too hot. It gets too hot for the plants. The soil inside the seed starting trays is too hot. Things like lettuce and other cool crops won't germinate if those soils are too hot. You know, they need not super cool soils, but something kind of in the 70-degree range usually for good germination. So if it gets too hot, you won't get good germination. Your plants, once they do germinate, are not going to like it being that hot. And if it gets too hot, you just can't stand to be in there. I've seen that before where it's just unbearable to be in there working in late August because it's just so hot in there. So ventilation is really, really important for us. And so the one we're getting has roll-up sides on it. So on both sides, it's like one long window that you can roll up completely and get some nice airflow through there. And we'll leave those open for the most part year round, except in the winter when it gets real cold. But that makes it easy to ventilate. We don't have to worry about roof vents or anything like that. We can really get some nice airflow in there, keep it cooled down when we need to, but also lower those sides and keep it warm on those few days throughout the winter when we need to. Now, if you live up north, you probably don't need roll-up sides. That's just something that's really important for us down here, is having that good ventilation in the greenhouse. So it depends on where you live, but if you live in a warm climate, really, really consider getting a greenhouse that can be easily ventilated. You can open doors, windows, whatever the design allows for, to get some airflow in there and get that thing cooled off in these really hot months. Now, one thing that's not really an issue for us that may be for some of you guys up north is heat. Some greenhouse you can get with heaters inside them. We don't really need a heater down here inside a greenhouse. Now, there will be a random few days, if it gets down in the 20s or so, where I might put a little portable propane or electric heater inside there just to keep things from getting really, really cold in there. But like I said, that's probably 3 or 4 days out of the year. So our greenhouse is not going to have a heater installed in it. If you live somewhere where it gets really, really cold, you might want a heater inside it, but that's not something we really need. And so I'll just bring in something portable when we do need it on those random few days where it gets really cold. And then the last thing to consider as far as your greenhouse design goes, in addition to size, ventilation, heat, would be your benches or your kind of working setup inside it. Since I'm growing mostly transplants and using those big trays, mine's going to have just long rails down each side, and that's pretty much it. There'll be an area in the back where I can kind of do some planting and stuff, but it's mostly just going to be those long rails on each side. If you're having more potted plants in there, you might not want benches down both sides. You may want some more room for putting some trees in there, or larger potted plants or whatever. Maybe you're doing a lot of hanging baskets and stuff and you need some rods running from the ceiling so you can put some hanging baskets in there. Just think about what you're going to be using it for long term, and that'll kind of give you an idea of what kind of bench space you need, how many trays you're going to need to sit in there to grow all the transplants you need, or maybe all the transplants you're going to sell. All right, so lots of things to consider there when getting a greenhouse. Why to get a greenhouse? What kind of greenhouse should you get? Now let me walk you around and show you how we decided where we're going to put the greenhouse on our homestead. So when I first mentioned to Brooklyn about getting a greenhouse, first thing she said, where's it going to go? Where are you going to put this thing? And so she wanted it not to be visible from the road, for it to be kind of hidden a little bit. And I kind of agree with that somewhat. So that ruled out a lot of places. So that means we weren't going to put it right here behind the dream garden out in this patch of grass, because you could still see it from the road. We're obviously not going to put it out here in the front yard or anywhere like that. I know this is contrary to what many homesteading channels preach, but I kind of like my yard. I don't really do anything to it. I don't fertilize or water anything, but I like having my front yard of grass. I like cutting my grass every week or so. So I really don't want to infringe on my front yard, and we don't want it right here. So that left us to go back here in the backyard, and we can go behind the house on the other side of the grapevine there, or behind the barn there. Now I thought about putting it right here beside that little compost storage bin. We don't make compost here, but we kind of put our extra compost there when we get a load. Thought about maybe moving that arch panel trellis, putting it right there, or putting it on the other side of that compost bin there. That ground just really isn't that level, and it was going to require a good bit of dirt work, and I really didn't want to move the arch panel trellis, so that ruled out this area back here. Now we could possibly figure out somewhere back here to put it, but then we've got that big pecan tree to deal with. And for those of you who are confused on the pronunciation, it's not pecan, it's not pecan, it's pecan. And if you've ever had a pecan tree, you know they are the worst about limbs falling. Any little windstorm, especially if it's wet outside, is going to make limbs fall. So we don't want our greenhouse nowhere close to where it can get hit by a limb from this pecan tree. We also don't want it shaded by this pecan tree. So this area kind of right in here is ruled out. So that left me with one good spot right here on the back side of the barn. Now you see that tree right there? I don't really know what kind of tree that is. All I know is it grows really, really fast. It was just a volunteer there, and I just left it and mowed around it, but it's gonna come down, and our greenhouse is gonna go right here in this little green patch of grass between the back side of the barn and our fig trees over here. Not a big footprint we're working with, just 10 by 16. Once we get that tree out of there, we'll have nice light in here pretty much all day. Maybe some really, really late afternoon shade from the barn there, but pretty good light all day long right here. Like I said, we'll get that tree out of there. And right around the corner on that side of the barn is where my well is, and also my electrical box, which at some point I'm going to need to run water and electricity to this thing, so that way I won't have to run those lines too far. And if we look at this spot from the other side here, another advantage to this spot, it's nice and level, relatively level. One of my more level spots on the property. A lot of hills and undulations on this property, but that spot's pretty level, not going to require any dirt work. The guy said he can put it right on the ground right there. We just got to get that tree out of the way. Now I mentioned the water and the electrical. We need water obviously to water our transplants, and I need electricity there for heat mats, germination mats, especially in the spring. Now I'm not going to need heat mats in late August, early September for starting transplants. It's going to be plenty hot enough in that greenhouse. Not going to need any germination mats. So that's why I'm not going to run the electrical lines right now. Just going to hold off on that. And my well's right here. I can just run a water hose around here and water everything that way. But at some point I would like to have a water spigot right there or right inside the greenhouse, and have a electrical plug-in there so I can hook up my germ mats. And at some point we may try to rig some kind of little small automatic watering system in there. I did ask the guys at Atlas about that, and they said that could be done. They didn't really carry anything for that particular model I'm getting, but you could easily rig something. So we want to have water and electricity there at some point, just not an immediate necessity right now. All right, so now let's go inside. I'll get on the computer, take you to the Atlas greenhouse website, and show you the exact model we're getting and some of the features it has. Okay, so this is the company that's doing our greenhouse, Atlas Greenhouse. Their website is atlasgreenhouse.com. They're located in the big city of Alapahaw, Georgia, which is about an hour from us, here where we are. And they do all kinds of greenhouses. I'll take you to the structures page here. You can see they do some big commercial style greenhouses, as well as hobby greenhouses, metal buildings, all kind of stuff. And they can... They have guys that can put them together for you, or you can put them together yourself. I'll show you the one we're getting. So if we go down here, the one we're getting is called the Easy Grow Greenhouse. And so it looks something like this. Now mine won't have this little raised bed out in front of it. Maybe not even that little brick patio there. But the general structure of it will look like this. And if you've seen some of my previous greenhouse videos, this should look very familiar to you. So it's got a door with a little ventilation on there, and it's all kind of poly around the outside, this plastic here. Not any hard sides on it. And here's the roll-up doors or roll-up windows that you see right here. So you can roll those all the way up or roll them all the way down. Now this particular one here, it's hard to kind of see inside of it, but it just has the benches on one side or the rails on one side. On this side, mine will have this rail here on this side and on the other side. And then in the very back here, that's where we'll have kind of our potting area. You can also get stuff in here to put hanging baskets. You can see all the different additional options here. We're getting the roll-up curtains, but you can get a heater, box fan, thermostats, all kind of stuff in there. And there are different sizes of this one. Like I said, we're getting the 10 by 16, but I believe they make one a little smaller and a couple longer. But we're going with the 10 by 16 model. And one thing that is going to be different from this one, the one my dad has, is we're going with the white plastic here instead of the clear. On his, he had the clear, but they recommended the white just because it keeps it a little cooler. Down here where it's just so hot, it helps out to keep this thing a little cooler to have the white plastic on it as opposed to the clear. So that's what we're going with, this 6 mil plastic. Now they say it should last for 4 years. Maybe we can get a little longer out of that. We'll just have to see. And it's not too difficult to replace the plastic on it. It's a good half-day job or so. But, you know, only having to replace it every 4 years or so is not too bad. Now, if you want something a little more fancy on the residential greenhouse side, they have this model here called the Francis. And I didn't quote this one, but I'm sure this one costs a little more than the one we're getting. But, you know, that's a bigger greenhouse. Looks a little more sturdy. And so that's an option there. But we like this Easy Grow here because we've got good experience with it. We've had good experiences with it. So this is the one we're going to go with. So we're very excited about getting our own greenhouse here at Lazy Dog Farm. Hopefully you guys are excited about all the good video content that's going to come from having this greenhouse. Lots of good seed starting videos, transplant growing videos, all that good stuff hopefully coming very soon. I don't have an exact date of construction. They just told me they're about 3 weeks out or so. And when they do come, put this thing up, hopefully going to get that on camera so you guys can kind of see the construction if you were to get one and want to put it together yourself. You can see kind of what all that entails there. So we should have it hopefully by the end of August, and then we can start our own transplants, grow our own cool season transplants in our own greenhouse here at Lazy Dog Farm. And if you are interested in the Easy Grow greenhouse or any of the other greenhouses that Atlas Greenhouse carries, they do ship. So you don't have to necessarily be in South Georgia, or you don't have to go pick it up. They can ship them to you and you can assemble it yourself, or you can have someone locally assemble it for you. But if you are interested, give them a call at their main number. Ask to speak to a guy named Stuart Sumner. He's the guy I've been working with. He's been really, really helpful. And they don't have an online affiliate program. It's more of a word-of-mouth affiliate program. So if you call and speak to Stuart, just tell him that Travis at Lazy Dog Farm sent you. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video talking about our new greenhouse we're getting. Lots of exciting things to come here. And if you have any additional questions about what you should consider before buying a greenhouse, or maybe you have a greenhouse and you have some tips you want to provide as well, be sure to put those in the comments below. And if you did enjoy this video, make sure to subscribe, ring the bell, like, and share, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.
Oh, farewell, by the beauty of your life.